So literally, we're ready to start this live show in just a few minutes, and our neighbors, what? What's wrong? What? Oh my gosh, did I leave my tag on? Well, this is for Angie. Angie, see, I'm taking the tag off. See that? We're live. I forgot. We're live. We're going live right now.
Get on you.
Where? Stop adjusting me.
I'm not adjusting. I'm cleaning.
It seems like our lights are just all off. I'm going to do this real quick. How's everybody doing? And out of the dark.
And now I can't see anything. The reflection and the glare.
You're so bright, you don't need to wear shades.
Oh, yeah, I do. You want me to type without shades?
How is everybody doing? I'm Wally from Supreme Gecko.
I'm Nanette.
And we have a very, very, very special guest today. We have Bobby Covek from Gecko Cove. My fit today is a leopard gecko. Why do we have Bobby? We had Bobby on.
Gecko on. We have Bobby on.
Because I couldn't find my NARBC. I couldn't find my NARBC Gargoyle shirt, so this is the best. It's probably downstairs in the wash or something. So great planning on my part. Bobby Covek. I can't think of another person that has come up faster and been more influential. I have a ton of respect for Bobby and what he's doing, and not just with his geckos, but also what he's doing in the community. There's not I don't feel more influential, positive, contributing to the hobby. Then I go on Facebook today and I'm seeing Isopod back and forth and drama, and this person's doing that. It's like, I'm just so sick of this stuff. Drama, yeah. And every hobby, whether it's cars or horses or tropical fish, we met up with a lot of this when we were keeping tropical fish. There's politics and there's favoritism and cliques but it just seems like the isopod hobby just got crazy the last few months. One thing I have never, ever seen is Bobby doing any of that. Bobby is a positive influence in this hobby, and that is so refreshing and so good to see. So, Bobby, I appreciate it so much. We're going to bring Bobby out in just a minute. What's up?
Sponsored drink is a Diet Pepsi, and the grocery store had sugar cookies, and I was weak. In the bakery department.
From Christopher's wedding years ago. It's still one of my favorite cups.
The cookies? No, the cookies were at the store today.
Oh, did you get meat cookies?
I did. There's a whole box downstairs. I'm not adjusting you.
So what's going on at Supreme Gecko, just real quick before we bring Bobby out?
I don't know. This week at Supreme Gecko, what did we do? Well, we worked on some isopods, moving around some isopods, refreshing there. It's going to take us a while. I know we said that last week, but there's a lot of isopods. Cleaning them up. A couple of them got cross-contaminated, so I need to clean up the mess I made. So we're separating them and fixing that. Collecting eggs. Lots of feeding. Crystal introduced her black knights yesterday. The male and the female.
Harry Potter and Luna.
Got introduced 2 days ago. They came together.
Don't tell her, seriously, don't tell her, but we already have two sets of black knights in the box.
From different pair.
From a different pair.
Yeah.
So that's super cool.
Yeah, she'll be excited when that all happens. Other than that, I don't know what else is happening down there because I haven't really been down there much. Oh, we harvested dubias.
We harvested dubias. We had a lot of dubias. I saw somebody that just posted a link with dubias on Facebook, and they had a gallon pitcher, and I can't remember how many, 10,000, 20,000, I don't know, so baby dubias. They just harvested a whole gallon. It was pretty cool.
Angie's asking about our deformed gecko.
That was a Pterosynctus Cinctus. We should have had Crystal in here because she has looked at this gecko every single day. So if you don't know, if you're live for the first time here, thank you very much for joining us. And Nanette, let me know if you see some names that you can say hi to. JP, we're going to have to block you because I know that you have some questions for Bobby that are maybe not for this show, maybe for a different show, maybe an after dark show. I don't know. So this thing does.
What the hell is on your shirt?
That's my leopard gecko. Life is better with a leopard gecko. The Cinctus is doing well. How about that? So Crystal's looking at the Cinctus every single day. If you don't know, the Cinctus was born without one leg and two that aren't really functional. I think the eyes are kind of messed up a little bit. I do believe take a closer look, and it does have a mouth. It's hard when you have something like this happen, and we are giving it as much attention and care as we possibly can. We'll see how it works. Sunday was my yes or no day, and it was a yes because I think it is eating. I'm counting the mealworms.
Very active.
Yeah.
And the other problem was that you made a mistake of letting Crystal see it and hold it. And she has fallen in love with this little thing and
she has
it constantly.
Yeah, so we're going to keep going with it as long as we can. It takes a lot of work, but that's okay.
They think that's a toad leopard gecko. It's a new morph.
It's a new morph. It's the Toda cinctus leopard gecko. I don't know. Your knee. We're preparing for your knee surgery coming up in a month.
I'm doing nothing. It's in 2 months.
So what did I ask you to do about your knee today?
Oh yeah,
in the morning.
First thing out of bed this morning, he says to me, "You probably need to make a list in Notion," because now I'm using Notion, "and create a whole page of the things that you can do while you're sitting on the couch for 6 weeks. Like reading books, what do you want? Are there projects you want to do? Move ahead on things, watch TV shows." And I'm not sitting on a couch for 6 weeks.
It may be. We'll see how it goes. You are not moving for a week or two for sure.
They have me in PT for 3 times.
I don't care what the
week.
doctor says. I'm the boss, and this is my house. I'm the boss in my house. You're not hurting yourself in the first 2 weeks.
Frank,
while I'm
right.
on watch.
You're right, Frank. It's going to take him a lot more time downstairs, so then I can move when he's downstairs.
That's okay. Buy me a coffee. I'm going to mention just really quick, and then we're going to bring Bobby on. We've got a lot going on for Buy Me a Coffee. Buy Me a Coffee, and a couple of weeks ago, talking about collecting eggs, we did a egg collection video. I think it was like 20 minutes or so, and showing our setups, showing some of our geckos, showing our process, and we were striving toward 100 eggs. So 100 eggs, 100 gecko eggs. Somebody posted on Facebook when I showed the little bottle caps with the stuff. Why do you need so many geckos? Why are you hatching so many? So we had back and forth, and she apologized, and it was cool. I kind of explained why.
Well, she didn't understand.
Because she didn't understand. I'm educated. And we have wish lists, and I know from a spreadsheet standpoint how many geckos I can't expect to sell this year. It is still a business, but it is, down in the heart passion. So watch that collecting eggs video if you're a Buy Me a Coffee member. For Buy Me a Coffee members next week, I've promised, but next week I have a new tool out, and I'm glad that I waited because I've been using it because we're starting to get some eggs and get some bad eggs, and this is a tool that is something that will speed up your process. Watch for that in the Buy Me a Coffee, and I'll offer help once I publish this next week on anybody that wants to set up this. It's not a spreadsheet, but it's something very, very similar. Any messages in it?
Yeah, they're suggesting that I get into gaming.
Ooh, like what? Like World of Warcraft? Like
gaming PC, get a PS5 and start gamers, Twitch, YouTube.
Oh my gosh, that would be crazy.
Yeah.
No. Buy Me a Coffee. New animals are going to be made available next week for our Buy Me a Coffee members first. We always do that first. Then I go to the wish list. Then I post on Morph Market, and it's still available. Then I put it on the store, which hardly ever happens. And maybe not next week, but the week after. I've been working on this for months. I have 2 new websites that will be published probably in 2 weeks. And this is, oh my gosh, when you see these. And if you've been watching this for a while, and me saying I'm working on projects, It's finally coming through in probably 2 weeks after we do next week's new animals and the tool that's coming out for our Buy Me a Coffee members. But Buy Me a Coffee members will find out about these new websites first. You might already have seen them because they are public, but I haven't really published anything. From the Supreme Gecko store, I've taken pictures of our crested geckos. I've updated our crested geckos. Still need to do gargoyles. I've taken pictures of our leopard geckos and put the pairings out there so people can reference. I hate going to shows and saying, here's your crested gecko. Oh, what's the lineage? Oh, I don't have pictures yet. Well, now we have pictures. Finally got that going. So you can visit our Supreme Gecko site, go to our collection and go to our leopards or our cresteds or Periodora picta. Lots of Periodora picta out on the store right now, folks. Lots. What else do I have? Any shows? We don't have any shows until next month, where we have three next month. So look for us at any of the scaled up expos. We just did Sewerfest. We had a blast at Sewerfest a couple of weeks ago. But the Net Use a Coloring app. Watch for us on Scaled Up in La Crosse, Madison, and Fond du Lac. Our schedule is on our Supreme Gecko store. Without any further ado, oh my gosh, Bobby, thank you very much for your patience. I greatly appreciate you waiting for me to stop.
Hey guys.
How are you doing?
I'm great. I was blushing for a long time with the awesome introduction you gave me. So thank you so much for giving me time to come back to my normal color.
No, thank you. Thank you for doing what you do. You know, I've been, when you talk, it reminds me of something. I have the face for radio. You have the voice for podcasts like this and radio. So you have outside.
Thank you.
I think the very first time I talked to you, you have that deep, charismatic kind of voice. So it's fun listening to you.
It still annoys my wife, so I appreciate the compliment, though.
Outstanding. So we'll turn up the volume here and ask her to join
you.
How are you doing? If for those that don't know Bobby and Gecko Cove, why don't you give us a little bit of an intro to you and to Gecko Cove, please?
Sure. So Gecko Cove started about 4 years ago. I am a very small hobby breeder of primarily gargoyle geckos. That's what I specialize in. And I focus in on the highest pattern color expression that you can possibly get on these animals. So typically higher end animals. I always want to say, if I'm looking at a gecko in my collection and I'm not just over the moon about it, it's probably not going to stay with me very long, because I just want to make sure everything I have is as high quality as possible. I've been doing this, like I said, for about 4 years. I started really small, worked my way up to my current collection, which went from my very first gecko, Hawaii, all the way to now I have about 12 breeding females, so still not massive. And I'm really enjoying this season. I'm having a great season so far. I also have my podcast, which when I was first starting out, I started, interviewing people like Wally, like a bunch of amazing breeders in the hobby, because I didn't know anything. And rather than get on YouTube, which I've been watching, but I wanted to get, I wanted to jump in and be a part of the community. I figured people would talk to me and give me their secrets and tips if I had a platform. So it worked out really well. I asked a lot of questions, learned a ton of information. All of it's up on my Gecko Cove YouTube channel. And it was kind of a selfish endeavor that I just wanted the information for myself, but shared it with the rest of everybody else. And it seemed to work out pretty well. So I think those are my two big things. I also have a newer podcast with my buddy John from Goldenrod Gex. I was watching a few different kind of like buddy podcasts, and I'm like, you know what? I'm really connecting with this guy who's really into crested geckos. I felt like that was a nice market that we could kind of tap into. And so we have a podcast where we kind of talk about geckos in general rather than just specifically gargoyles. So kind of broaden the horizon for me.
That podcast with John is a little bit more, I feel, a little bit more laid back. I think that your original podcast, both are fantastic podcasts. And I like the bantering between the two of you with you and John, your original podcast. I've watched all of them, and I hope I've commented on all of them, but I've watched them all.
You did, yeah.
because you have great guests and you have great questions. You kind of
Thank
bring out the best of people. So I know, trying not to plug, but we did a podcast with
Mhm.
Period or Picta, and I just had a blast in it. And it was your questions that kind of brought out the response from me. So I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate it. And I think one thing that I was thinking about, because it sort of died down a little bit, primarily because the reason why I felt like I could ask these questions is because I was genuinely interested in learning about these things. And you get to a point after a year or so of asking questions about, how do I breed gargoyle geckos? How do I, Peridot picta were a brand new thing for me. So it kind of re-inspired me to ask those kind of questions. But now that I have all of this knowledge, not that I know everything, but I also feel bad asking the same questions over and over and over again, especially when I feel like I sort of know what I'm talking about now, where before I had no idea. I genuinely wanted to know. So that was sort of the fun part too. So hopefully that came across.
But I don't feel like you come across that way, Bobby, at all. I really
Thank you.
don't. I was recently in, and I still have to edit this thing, but I had an interview with 4 other people. Paul Morlock
Mhm.
was one, our good
Yep.
friend, with Peridot Picta. And I entered it with, I'm going to kind of talk about this. And after a while, we were on for like 3 hours talking, and somehow I've got to get that down to about an hour and a half. Maybe I'll take out all of me talking, and that'll get it down a little bit. But I found myself listening like, oh, you do it that way. Now, I've been working with Picta for, a long time. And at no point do I ever feel like I have all the answers. I feel like I have a good starting point. Here, try this because this has worked for me. But I sat in that interview, group interview, and I feel like I learned so much about Peridot or Picta, right? And I get that feeling from you too, that you are not just sharing to the viewers, but also kind of doing that back and forth, and
We're learning too.
Learning too.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Nanette, if you have any questions that I should be posting here, we're gonna either, if they're pertinent, we're going to throw them online right now, or if they're not, then we'll save them and we'll ask them at the end of the show. JP was asking about your vacation. So where did you guys go? Yeah.
So I was able to take my family on a vacation. Actually, kind of a nice little bragging point, because of how I sort of structured my business from the very beginning. I never took out any debt. I always tracked everything. I know you're a spreadsheet guy, Wally. I was able to break even pretty quickly, even with some of my larger purchases, and I was able to finally do what I promised my wife and pay for a vacation. So we went on a Disney cruise, 7 nights. We went down to the Virgin Islands. I stopped at Tortola, which I named one of my new geckos after, since we stopped there, because I named them all after islands. So I'm always looking for new islands to name stuff after. And then if you haven't been to the Virgin Islands, there's a place I took the kids to, kids and wife, where we took a little boat away from Tortola to Virgin Gorda. There's a place called the Baths. It's amazing. It's all these giant rock boulders all across massive, absolutely. They look like giant buildings. And there's caves that you can go through where there's little pools and baths inside. And, it's not, it sounds way more adventurous than it really is. It didn't take more than probably a half hour, but it was so cool, and visually one of the neatest things I've ever seen traveling. And to share that with my kids and my wife and get all the pictures, it's my new Facebook profile on Facebook. So if you want to see what that looked like, feel free to go over there. But that
Love
was phenomenal.
Love the pictures.
Yeah.
So
and then obviously Disney does a good job.
You didn't get your arm caught in any of the boulders, right?
No. Luckily, they were too big to move. So
the incident.
I think it would take more than my arm off for sure. But it kind of reminded me of my wife and I went to the Seychelles Islands for my honeymoon, and it really reminded me of the giant boulders in the Seychelles. So
nice.
Kinda
What
cool.
a great getaway. And I like what you said about, you structured your business so that you could do things like this without it impacting your business or your business impacting your normal life. And that, I think that sometimes people get too caught up in, I feel like sometimes I get too caught up, dinner back downstairs to feed. But we have to break away from that. We have to all realize that we have normal, regular lives that we need to fulfill, and that needs to fulfill us as well. So good for
Yeah.
you on taking that. And
Well, I
with the kids,
appreciate that.
they were just nuts about this.
Oh, yeah, they were. And it was fun as they're getting to the age where they want to help feed and do all those things. So it's they, for the longest time they were too young for that. So especially my younger one, which is really surprising, which is awesome. But that's kind of a fun thing I'm sharing with them. The other thing too to mention, since we're talking about vacation, is a lot of people, once you start building your collection, you have more than a few animals. Um, Nobody's going to take care of your animals like you take care of your animals. And so prepping your animals and the person vetting the person that you want to have come take care of them and setting things up on automation. There's so many things we could probably talk about that just by itself. But that was a huge undertaking that I've really tried to refine, because one of the things I think of is, how you're always looking for infrastructure, right? With, I need so many baby racks, I need so many breeding setups and new food and all these little things that you're tracking the expenses of. Well, one of those expenses has to be care. When you are gone, who's taking care of your animals? And if you don't have someone in your house that could just take care of them, you pay for it. And so, yeah, so doing that, cameras, everything. I mean, I had someone who was okay with, I had babies hatch while I was gone, and they set up the babies and took care of them. I mean, that's a fragile job.
Yes, yes. And that's probably the one big thing, other than emergencies or exceptions or something, that,
Hmm.
to be honest, and Angie's right. I did a video on getting away and leaving your animals. And the one thing that, and I hope you agree with us. The one thing is that we have to keep in mind is that sometimes animals in the wild don't eat for a couple, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Yes.
7 days. So that's not that critical. But if you have electric go out, if you have a misting system, if you have something
Babies
that goes
hatching.
wrong, that's
Hmm.
an emergency. If you have babies hatching, what do you do then? Yeah. Do you have one
Yeah.
tip that maybe, okay, if somebody's going on vacation, do you have one tip that you could give our viewers on maybe something that you should do to prepare or think about before you go on vacation?
Give geckos away to family members, get them addicted, and teach them how to take care of them.
Dang.
Uh, that's helped for me. No, I mean, that is a tip, but I would say that one of the other tips is automation and monitoring. I was able to, I paid for the internet on the ship just because I wanted to see if my babies were hatching. I even right now, if I'm in bed, I can go and on my phone look at my Ring camera and see what's hatching, what's sitting there. And actually, that did happen where my cousin was only coming once every 3 days, and she was in charge of the geckos. So paid her to do that, but I said, hey, if I on the camera see that an egg is hatching, I need you to go over there that night and set them up. And it worked out great. Yeah. So things like that, so that you're able to communicate if it's possible, and just have an eagle eye view even when you're gone.
Perfect, perfect. I love it. And Joe Sabby is saying water is important when we're on vacation. Absolutely, I
Hmm.
1000% say water is the critical issue. Food is minor. So I love the idea of giving animals to family members so they get
Yeah.
engaged and they kind of get the buy-in. And oh, by the way, we're going on vacation. You want to take care of
Won't
some
work with
animals?
my
Right.
sister.
Well, and then when they say, "Hey, I'm going on vacation. Can you watch my one crested gecko?"
Right.
Absolutely. Throw it
Sure
in the
thing.
bin.
Be there
We
every
got
day.
room. So that works out really well. Speaking
Yeah.
of water, though, I will
Yeah.
say, and this is a whole nother tangent we could go down if you want to. I don't keep my geckos in a very traditional setup. I have a new gecko tent, and humidity is such a huge thing with New Caledonia species. I have my tent set up on a AI smart system where I have a 5 gallon humidifier that's hooked up to the AI system, and it pumps out and keeps the humidity right around 70 to 72%. I don't mist ever. So I don't have to worry when I go about people, not misting or them drying out, it's a beautiful thing. The only thing that I ask them to do is when they feed, fill up their water bowl, and that usually lasts a day or two. So because it's not drying out because of low humidity.
Little
Yeah.
water added, and you're done. Minette just brought up a good point too, and that's, you can ask somebody to mist, but what happens if they forget? That's the first thought that comes to mind. But even worse is what happens if they over mist.
Yes, that happened my very first time leaving. My stuff molded like crazy. It was not good.
Oh.
Yeah.
Man, and there's no recovery from that. Now your plants are all wet, everything's wet, and the geckos, might, who knows, respiratory or shedding or who knows what's going on. JP is asking, Bobby, what animals did you see while on vacation aside from anoles at Disney?
Okay, so funny enough, I actually didn't see any anoles just because of where I was going. It would have been cool, especially the island, locale specific. But there were some endemic animals I saw on St. Thomas. So we actually took a bus tour over to what's called Aquatic Land or Aquatic World. So it's a animal sanctuary / like mini zoo, but it's all about the local animals, and it's built into the ocean so that their water filtration is just literally coming in from the ocean, coming right back out.
Oh.
And makes things so natural, so they don't have to ever put in artificial salt. I'm like, this would be a dream if I kept a saltwater tank again. But they had a big area where they had rescued dolphins. They had baby sharks that got rescued, and then they grow them out and release them back. So that was kind of cool. But one thing I saw there was a very specific looking iguana, and they were everywhere, and they're massive, right? They're like big green iguanas. But they weren't green. They were all gray with like raccoon banding around their eyes and around their tails. And people were trying to get up real close. And I'm like, I know enough about, those things that I'm like, they are not friendly. And it's one I saw lunged at somebody taking a picture. And so I had a few conversations with the people who work there about those, and there's signs all over the place, do not feed them. But they were so cool. I mean, very unique. And I asked them, I was like, is there a certain subspecies this is? And they're like, no. And there's a ground lizard too, that sort of looked like a skink. Really cool. And the males had these bright colors. I've got a picture. I should have sent that one to you. I'm sorry. But this thing was amazing, and they were everywhere. I mean, just everywhere. And there was little babies, my kids were getting excited seeing the tiny little babies, and they were bold. And I'm like, what are they? And they call them geckos. I'm like, well, it's not a gecko. I know geckos. Trust me. I know geckos. All right. They're like, we just call them geckos here. And then the one scientist was like, they just call them island lizards. That's it. There's no scientific name because nobody studied them. I'm like, that's cool.
House gecko.
Yes. Like
everything's a house gecko.
Yep.
So JP is asking, did you put lettuce between your toes to get them close for pictures?
There was no need. These things were bold. These things were not afraid of people. So there was a red foot and tortoise enclosure that was really cool at that place. And so that was one of the things they brought out, a little baby, redfoot. They're like, have you ever seen one of these? I'm like, yes, I have, but it's still cool. And they were all over the tortoises. One was riding the tortoise's back, which I thought was kind of funny. Like they're performing, not even trained to do so.
Very, very cool. What a great experience especially for your kids. When you got back, how was everything? Gecko room, geckos looking good. Everything
was pretty solid. So I had just hatched out some babies right before I left, which is always a little nerve-wracking, right?
Yes.
I'm actually up to 40 babies as of today for the season.
Wow.
And I'm up to 70 eggs as of this morning total, which is pretty exciting. I've never had this many.
40 plus another 70?
No. 70 total eggs, and 40 of the 70 have hatched.
Cool.
So, I mean, just to put in perspective, my first year I had 15 babies total. And then last year I had, I think, 52 total hatched. And so I'm already, getting close to what I produced at the entire season last year. And so I'm trying to find that sweet spot of
Yep.
what's too much and then scale back a little bit, right? And push the envelope. So far I haven't hit it, but I also am getting close, I can tell. But yeah, coming back, all the geckos were happy, healthy, no real issues. There was a few, dry food bowls that just dried out because that's what they do.
Yep.
But overall, yeah, everything was good. There was she had my caretaker, cousin. Shout out to Kelly, you're amazing. But
Okay.
I yeah, everything was great. We got eggs. She had found the eggs. She candled the eggs. She put them in the right orientation in my lay cups,
Wow.
or incubation cups, and then she actually hatched out. Like I said earlier, they hatched out 2 babies. She set those up. Those looked phenomenal. Like when I hatch out babies, I take pictures. I want to see. I want to like analyze everything and go, okay, what's the potential here? I look back at older siblings and go, okay, how did they look when they hatched? So I go down the rabbit hole with every baby that I ever hatch, right? And so when I'm on vacation and she sends me this like snapshot of her cell phone,
Yeah.
and she's a lot younger than I am. Let's just put it that way. So it's just funny how generations take photos. And I'm zooming in and I'm like, this isn't enough information. I can't bother her and ask for more, but that's
Did
always
she
fun.
take the picture like, she's got the camera
Selfie.
and
A
then
half of her
the
face,
gecko,
no,
and she does a little duck face kind of thing?
that'd be awesome.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
we're going to show some amazing gargoyle geckos here, your pairs, in just a few minutes.
awesome.
But I wanted to kind of ask you, it's a big change from your first year to your second and now to your third year.
Mhm.
4th year.
Is this your fourth year?
It's my 4th year, but yeah, first
Okay.
year was sort of a small thing. But yeah, no, but
Nothing
4th
wrong
year
with it.
breeding.
It's a big change. And when you're talking about
It is.
70 babies is now you're into the, now I'm a breeder,
Mhm.
not just a casual keeper. And what's the biggest difference that you're seeing now that you're kind of getting a lot of eggs here and you're very specific with what you're looking at? And you've been that way for many years, what you're
Yes.
looking for.
I would say that there's a few things. I'm glad I did it the way I did it, because starting off where I didn't have 12 females year 1, I would have been burnt out. I'd been gone. I wouldn't be in the hobby, and to be honest with you. I didn't have the infrastructure, and what it takes me to take care of the animals I have now is faster than what it took me to take care of 6 geckos as they're growing out back in the day,
Right,
right?
right.
And so that's a huge difference. My efficiency, the thing that I spend the most time in my gecko room with, honestly, at this point, is just staring at them and taking photos, right? The actual like filling up the cups, it's like when you start a new job and you've got to commute to work, right? That first week, first month, you're paying attention to the roads, you got your GPS on, you're thinking about it because it's new and you've got to pay attention. And then you get to like year 5, 6 of the same job and the same routine, and you're like, I don't have enough time to listen to my podcast because it just goes so fast, right? Because you're
You're
on
driving,
autopilot and your
you're eating
brain
that
just doesn't.
You're eating that
Yeah,
McDonald's sausage, smoking a cigarette, and drinking coffee, and you're not even paying
he
attention. Yeah,
knows my
exactly.
routine.
Taking a nap.
Yeah. But as far as like, I know how many, the only thing I got to do is, because I'm hatching so many new babies, is count the baby cups again. But I know for the adults how many cups I could actually pull out the cups, the brand new ones from the sleeve, and I can almost guesstimate exactly how many I need because I've done it so many times. So just the efficiency there. Also this year I've kind of got a imposter syndrome kind of thing going on this year with looking at my babies, because I remember, and I don't know if you remember this, you remember there was a big trend about 5 years ago where people would go and post geckos on their hand. If they had 5, 6 stripes, they were like, holy crap, you are the best gargoyle breeder in the world, right?
Yep.
And I remember seeing those and go, I mean, I hope to God I could do that one day. And right now, I'm looking at my babies who have blown away last year's babies, in my opinion, already. And we're not even, the oldest one I think is 2.5 months old. Um, I'm in awe of what I'm producing this year, and it's exciting. It's scary how good they're getting, but my vision is coming true. So I think that's really exciting.
Well, to give you even more credit, Bobby, it's this isn't by chance. This is you getting results this year because 2, 3 years ago you started planning where you wanted to be right now.
Appreciate that.
You're planning. I'm assuming you're planning right now where you're going
Hmm.
to be in 2 or 3 or 5 years from this point. So you're probably
Absolutely.
looking at your adults and your babies and saying, okay, down the road in 4 or 5 years, I need to add this animal and this animal to strengthen to push forward this
Hmm.
line that you're working with. So that's a lot of not hindsight, but looking forward and planning. So good job to you for sure.
Well, I appreciate that. It was interesting too with that kind of theory is, and you're right. I was very intentional to so much to the point where I've gotten flack from people for not keeping animals that I bought because either A, I'd get new information, or B, they didn't turn out and develop the way I wanted. And so kind of like with, if you're a business owner, right? You've heard that some people hire and fire fast, right?
Yep.
If you know what you're looking for, you want the best employees, you hire the best you can, and if they're not working out, you let them go real quick. And I feel like there's nothing wrong with that as long as you're doing it ethically and finding them good homes. I There was geckos that just I knew were not going to work. And if I kept them, I'd get sentimental about them, right? And I'd keep them for too long, and then I'd regret it because their babies wouldn't be what I wanted. And so, trying to stay small, I wouldn't intentionally buy one to sell it. But if it didn't work out in 4 or 5 months down the road, or 6 months down the road, or a year down the road, I was happy to move it, and get it to the right hands where they would appreciate it more than I'm appreciating it.
Absolutely, and that takes a lot. That really does a lot of discipline. Um,
Hmm.
I intentionally did this, and I do it for my videos too. And I'm a fool for doing this, but I've intentionally not shown some of your geckos to kind of build up a little bit of suspense here. So
Awesome.
bear with me for a second here. I have to show them. Angie,
Oh, please. Yeah.
I see your question, and I'll show that in just a second. Share screen and take a look at this, folks. So hopefully you can see that, everyone. I'll see if I can get a little bit of a bigger picture here. Talk to us
Awesome.
about this group right here.
Yeah. So this is it's actually my most, it's my most unique group in that most of my stuff I wanted to be interchangeable within the groups, right? So if I had females that didn't work out with a certain male, I could put it with a different animal. This one, this is all you got. This is a red base, red blotch group. Everybody here fits that to a T. I tried to get the most, because a lot of red base animals, whether it be striped or blotched, in the current gargoyle market, the pattern color is secondary, and people focused in on just the red base, which is great. That's a look. But when they fire down, you can see that they don't have a lot of color left over. Where
Wow.
you can see I'm trying to get the best of both worlds because I'm greedy and I want high pattern and that amazing deep red base. And you can see the one girl, she's actually fired down on the right. That's actually Kalik. She's from Cosmic Exotics. She does have a kind of pinkish base, but she doesn't have as good of a red base as the other ones, but she's got the best coverage out of all of them. So what I'm trying to do with that pairing, and these are all brand new this year. So I've actually only gotten 2 sets of eggs from all 3. And actually Kalik, I have not paired yet because she just, wasn't ready, and I had to make that executive decision. But yeah, my goal with this group is to get, when you open up that tank, it is fire engine red when fired up, and kind of a purple tone when fired down. I actually, little tangent, when my second gecko ever purchased, and she's no longer with me, I sold her, was Eve, and she was probably my most famous animal when I first started. But she was a red base, red stripe, and I paired her with Mahe last year. Got some really cool babies, with that base color. But again, because I'm trying to be super focused on this, I wanted blotches and I didn't want to mix the two. So that's why I moved on Eve. But yeah.
Tell us, I'm going to show this picture once more.
Sure.
Tell us, for those that aren't as familiar with gargoyle I shouldn't even say Morph's traits, color pattern, what distinguishes this as a blotch?
All right. So hopefully Paul Morlock doesn't shake his head when I say this, because I've gotten all my best information on explaining this from him. And go back and listen to either Wally had a great podcast with him, or go listen to mine, or do both. It'll be fun. So, okay, the real fast version of that is you have to break it down into, there is base color, right, which is the skin color that fires up and down. There's pattern color, which is either striped or blotched or a mix of the two in some form. And it can be either a high expression, fully covered animal like I'm going for, or a low expression to the point where there is no pattern color, right? And then there is a pattern of the animal as well. And I'm not saying that correctly here, but basically like the reticulation, the black lining that you see, that is not the pattern. It affects the pattern, but it's not the pattern itself. It's not that red on top or the orange on top or the yellow on top. Stripe is a pattern. But then there's also patterned stripes, if that makes sense. So there's three components, and those are the three components that you have to play with and kind of move the dial in order to get what you want with gargoyle geckos.
Perfect. I'm going to show some other groups that you're working with right now, but let me ask this.
Yeah.
Let me get over here. I just lost the screen. Sorry.
I love the horn structure on some of these too.
I was just going to say, those horns are just phenomenal. I'm going to see if I can get a little bit closer here.
Like I said, so Mahe here is the male on the left. He is from Renee King. And if anybody's a big gargoyle nerd, Renee King, you should know. She produces amazing animals. She's known for her stripes because she produced David's Pennywise, which is Tampax's father. So this gecko is not related to that at all, but it is from the same breeder. And what was fun is I get to talk to Renee when I'm at Tinley, and she gave me one of the best, kind of like, I don't know if it's a compliment or, but she's like, out of all the animals I've ever sold, I've only truly regretted selling one, and it's this one. And she goes, if you ever move him on, you got to give me first dibs. And I'm like, you know what, Renee, I'll do that for you, because she was so good to me when I was first starting out.
Oh my gosh, Renee's a super lady, very humble. I've asked Renee a couple of times to come on the show and talk about gargoyles. A real quick story, and I'm not saying this to give myself any credit, because all the credit is to the person that works with lines and pulls it out. But I think I was one of the first people to sell Renee a gargoyle gecko years and years ago.
Maybe it's got supreme gecko lineage in it. So,
and again, it's not the gecko, it's what I feel like, I'm going to use Picta again. I can take any Picta and I can pull reds. Given enough time, I can do something. The credit is to you, and the credit is to Renee for looking, seeing, and working with what you want to work with, and seeing that vision. So good job, Renee.
Yeah, she did a great job. Phenomenal. So yeah, and then this group, you diversify. So, trying to find out, I've got a Tiki's gecko, Tiki on the right, and then I've got a northern gecko in that group. So kind of fun.
I'm going to see if I can share another picture here. I should have left that up on my screen. Okay, here we go. Oh my gosh. These animals are unbelievable. Of course, I can see them. Nobody else can right now.
I was going to say, I'm not seeing them.
I know. I'll get there.
We'll get there. All right. So then my other blotch group. Very cool. Yeah. So came in. So this is where, like, as you dive deep in, I feel like, and maybe in the comments, let me know what geckos other than Tampax do you think are in the gargoyle world, or maybe even in the crescent world? Which ones are the famous ones, right? Well, because there are famous geckos, in my opinion, right? And so I was always eyeing Kylie from Gargoyle Queen. She has some amazing stuff, and her
Yep.
blotches are amazing. And so Vapona is the male that I've been watching. So I have a son of Vapona, which just came in here. And then some of my very first really high-end, super excited blotches are the two girls on the right. That's Exuma and Bimini. They are half sisters, and they are just they blew me out of the water. And they still Exuma and Cayman have produced all of my holdbacks. They're just the best. And then speaking of famous geckos, Amaterasu I just got from Ryan at Dragonborn Exotics. He was I don't want to say the word retiring because obviously I'm going to breed her and he knows that. But Amaterasu has produced some of the most amazing blotches, and most of them would go overseas because they were so expensive. And when Ryan knew I really loved her, and when he was thinking, okay, he keeps it even smaller than I do, and he's like, I want someone who's really going to do her justice. I was honored that he even considered offering me her, so I had to snag her. And she's an older girl at the age of, I think she's 8 or 9, but I feel like with these guys, they're going to go for a long time. So especially when they look that nice, and that picture is not even a good picture of her, and she's even more stunning in person. But that color saturation is her at 9, right? So to have a gecko that's 9 years old, been bred since she was 3 years old, and to retain that saturation of color, I mean, that's what David talks about with Pennywise and Deadpool. Like, that's it in the blotches right there.
When we look at these geckos, tell me.
Potato counts, by the way.
Yeah, thank you for getting that. If I'm looking at these, if I'm going to grade them, and this is unfair, completely unfair, but from your eyes to help our viewers and myself, how would you grade these? Let's say from a scale of 1 to 10, or even 1 to 4. You could go 1, 2, 3, 4.
So yeah, let's just do 1 to 10 because I think it gives us more play.
Okay.
I would say the top one again. What's interesting is higher expression usually means higher expression babies, but not always. I'm excited to see. I think Amaterasu is if nothing's perfect, it's a 9 out of 10. Otherwise, she's a 10. So it's that girl there. If anything, I want her colors to be brighter, would be my goal, and that's why I would pair her with the male that I'm pairing her with. She may have a different male next year that's going to be ready to go, but we'll see how she produces. One thing I find is that when you get adults in, they don't always do great that first year in a new environment. So sometimes they will not produce any eggs. Sometimes they'll produce less eggs. Some don't care and just they're off to the races. But I've gotten duds from her so far at my house, so I'm optimistic. I would say number 2 in that category would be Exuma, which is the top right. One thing I want to mention just because of the picture here, do you see how her eye looks a little funky?
A little bit like a V.
Yeah.
A little bit like it's V'd out at the bottom.
So when she first got paired, Cayman bit her in the wrong place.
Oh my God.
And so that is something I've seen happen twice with gargoyle geckos. And she's fine. Doesn't affect her in any way. Probably affects her vision a little bit in that eye, but she doesn't act any different. She eats, maintains, does everything else. But just these guys are aggressive towards each other, and their tails get chewed on. And so if you want a perfect gecko, do not breed it. I'm just telling you, don't do it. It's also why I no longer keep singly anymore. Everything Paul told me, I am a typical questioner. I want to know why, and if I don't understand why, I do it my own way. And Paul said groups because it spreads out the aggression, and especially if you keep them year round. I had to go back to groups. I'm like, Paul, you're right. You're right again. So, but yeah, I would say she's like a good 8, 7 or 8. What I'm looking for is the pattern spread. Her babies blow her out of the water actually right now, but I'm looking for the coverage on the legs, the head kind of
Oh,
dot right below the horn. Another big thing that I look for, the cheek saturation, right? A lot of them are missing the color cheek saturation. I'm a stickler for that, at least with the blotches. Blotches, I'm not as much of an expert in. Even when I get a baby, I'm like, is it going to be good? I don't know. I got to wait. I feel like it's more like crested geckos where like you don't know until you grow it out. Where with stripes, I know straight out of the egg if that thing's a winner, you know?
huh, good point. By the spread, by how wide the stripe is, by how
Number of
intense.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good call.
But yeah, Bimini is my weak link down in the bottom right. I would say, she's got great color. The thing she's got going for her is size. Guys,
Huh?
there are so many geckos that are just undersized, and I want bigger geckos. I think the babies come out healthier. They eat better. They're just overall better pets if they end up in a pet family. They feel more, like when you hold a lychee, it just feels substantial. Not that a gargoyle is ever going to feel that big, but she's 90 grams, guys. Like, and the other thing too is personality wise, she's the gecko. If I have a kid who's interested in animals and never held one before, that's the gecko I'll put in their hands because she is so relaxed and chill. And just, I think that passes along to her babies. I've never had her babies gape at me,
Oh my gosh. That's a big gecko. 90 grams is a big one. I was
but
at a
not
show.
fat.
Right. When you see them and they don't have the jowls that are hanging, but they're just built solid.
The longer, yep.
That's impressive. Yes, a bigger gecko. I think Alan Rapace was working with some that were pushing the 110 or 120 gram mark. Kyle Salzman, I'm sure that you know.
Yep.
And I both bought siblings of a gargoyle, and they were both. Mine was, I think, went up to 96. I think his was in the 90s as well. That's a chunky, and not, like you said, not fat, but really healthy. That's a big game.
Yeah, they're just like people. There's different bloodlines that my brother's kids are going to be bigger than my kids because he's 6'3" and I'm 5'10". Like it's just even within siblings there could be differences. But even Exuma, they both were at 60 grams at about a little over a year, and Exuma is at 80 grams. She's not as big as her sister, but they're both big geckos. And that was one other thing too with Amaterasu. She's a bigger girl, so I'm excited for this group.
Nice. I'm going to show another group here. Unless you have anything else with this one.
No. Let's we got some heat coming. Okay. As much as I love my blotches, I got into it because of blotches, but stripes have become my thing.
I'll admit I am a huge stripe over blotched. Blotches are super cool. There's a lot of nuances, and I give you so much credit, Bobby, on seeing details that I miss, I overlook. When I look at an animal, my immediate I guess what I see from the animal is what I take away immediately is pretty much, the color. Does it overwhelm me? And anything else about, I hate to say it like this, but the color on the feet or the cheeks is super cool. And it's good detail. But for me, if it stands out and I go, oh my gosh, look at the colors, I'm sold 100% right there. Speaking of, look at this, folks. Oh my God.
This is a little teaser for the next few groups.
Yeah.
I would say partly due to just what's available and what I like. When I was getting into it, what was the right price point? Everybody loves red. Okay. If you're getting into gargoyles, you'll eventually hear if it's 6 stripe and it's red, it sells. And it's true. Babies that are bright red that have 6 stripes or more are just the easiest things to move when it comes to gargoyles versus everything else. So this is sort of my lean into that group, right?
All right.
Kraken is phenomenal. You want to talk about when you see him in person, his color. He's got little eyebrows. His babies have been producing some amazing eyebrows. That's actually a regen tail, and there's that much red.
Wow.
I got him when he had it no tail, as a little tiny baby. And then his back, he's got speckling even in the. You see that black line that goes up the dorsal?
Yep.
So that's another little small detail I always look for. If it's missing pigment there and it's being filled in by the pattern color,
Yeah.
that to me is sort of, and again, I can't prove anything else. So I'm not going on record saying this is a gene or anything, but you know how like empty back with crested geckos, there's a, one gene empty back and a full empty back. Everybody's looking for the geckos that are full solid pattern backs, right? The ones that are almost like the girl to the right. But he is that first step, in my opinion. So you pair that correctly, and you're going to get full coverage backs because that spreads over time. Yeah, I'm really excited about him. And then the rest of them are all just from amazing breeders. Coral to the right, from koala geckos. What's interesting, so the girl to the bottom is from Eclipse Exotics, from Kelly. That's actually a sibling to one of her albinos.
Oh, really?
Or not albinos, or whatever they're calling it. They haven't proved out any gene, but like
Yeah.
the super white ones.
I know exactly what you're
So
talking about.
if it's if it's a recessive thing, I might have some genetics there, which I'm excited about. And then Maui is one of my older geckos, like one of the first ones I bought, the one on the left, bottom left. She is one that I debated selling so many times. I'm like, she just doesn't have full laterals on the side. There's things that are great about her. Her leg markings, her head markings are fantastic. Her color saturation is great, but she just wasn't every little detail I was looking for. And so I'm so glad I didn't sell her, because her babies this year are some of my absolute favorites. And I don't know, just the genes connected right with Kraken, and magic has been happening. So not that the other ones haven't, but hers have just stood out. So you never know.
But the thing is, you don't know. You don't know, looking at an animal, what genes they're carrying. You just don't know.
No.
Crazy.
But yeah, from H2O Reptiles, local guy that I'm good friends with, Oliver. Love it.
When I look at these animals, the one that jumps out at me, and pictures are different, obviously.
Yeah.
The male is incredible, but this female to the upper right,
Oh yeah,
Coral, is just amazing. The red, the coverage, the cheeks, everything about this animal screams, oh my gosh, I need this animal.
So
Beautiful.
Coral's an interesting one, because Coral I actually traded for. And I traded my best production from year 2 for that animal. Because and that girl was so nice, the one that I produced, that right out of the egg was that color that Coral is, right? And so we were looking for an even trade, and he was really nice because mine was a little bit younger. But I had tried to get Coral multiple times, and finally I'm like, all right, take my best. And what's funny is, actually, I think David messaged me. He's like, I have that gecko now, and I didn't trade David for it. But yeah, so when one of the big breeders has your babies, that makes you feel good.
How did it turn out? As it grew up, how did it turn out?
It turned out amazing. I would say they're on par with each other. They really are. But Coral is just, she's great. The one thing, talking about just personality wise, right? She's from his group. This is Koala Geckos, Blaze and Electra. Electra, he warned me, she is a tail eater. She will full on go after any other female in the enclosure, and she was aggressive. I'm like, all right, we'll see if the she inherits her mom's taste for tail. And one day I went down there, and it doesn't happen all the time, but I have to watch them, because I saw Maui's tail was fully in her mouth, fully, all the way up to her vent, and it looked like she was eating her. And I'm like, what in God's name do I do here? So I actually ended up taking her and pulling her off, just trying to not do any more damage. And I got the entire tail out. And that's why you only pair ready to breed adults, like truly ready to breed adults, because that tail will go when they're younger. When they're fully, they hold on to it way better. You know, the muscles are there. So
and
she did not get a lunch.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine seeing something like that. I think I would grab my ruler and hit her on the head. Stop that.
I was like, do I spray her with the spray bottle? That wouldn't do anything, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, I just kind of got in there and I'm like, all right, I'm ready to get bit if this goes sideways, but it didn't happen and it all worked out. And they still live together nicely.
JP is saying naughty geckos.
Very naughty geckos, yes. All right, now we're getting into my passion projects that kind of fell into my lap. Nemo is what I consider, if you kind of look at it, it's hard to see as they get older.
Yeah.
I'm trying to coin a new phrase called sandbarring. And again, it's kind of a work in progress. Nothing's official. You're not going to, you know, make me mad if you call it something else. But he's not a traditional six stripe. This picture actually kind of makes him look like one. But when he was younger, and all of his babies that come out have multiple stripes. It's not just the two stripes on either side of that black line in the center. They typically will have anywhere from 3 to 6 stripes on each side. Okay. They're a lot thinner, and sometimes they intercross and weave, and they look, why I call it sandbarring is I'm trying to do a Gecko Cove theme, but they blend together over time like sand and create more of a blanket, super wide back. And so that's one thing with him and with my other male, which we'll show after this, that I noticed in a lot of European lines, and I noticed in certain lines here in the United States, and I noticed that they don't come in the traditional red, right? The reds are the true six stripes typically. Wally, what's your favorite color? Orange. And that's becoming my favorite color.
Took me a long time to come up with that, didn't it?
Yeah, no, you got it. I watch you enough where I knew the answer before I asked the question. But that's why even the girl right next to him, I'm going to do my first pairing of a blotch to a stripe. And yeah, she is full on orange as well. So I'm trying to really step away from the traditional reds. I'm still doing the reds, obviously, with the last pair or last group. But 2 out of my 3 stripe groups, I want to have as much orange in there and create orange babies. And it's been very successful lately. And the ones that I've raised up from last year are holding their orange and not having it turn red, which is really exciting. I think it's a whole new market because I think people want options, and that is an option for people if you like orange.
So you have 2 directions here. You have two paths that you can go down. One is reds and focused and better and more brilliant and more coverage, and then you've got another path over here with oranges. You get it. So we all have those choices. Which one do we take? Which choice do we take? Do we spend all our resources, all of our time, all of our energy, all of our money going down this path, or do we also try to keep going down that path, but also do this other path? And how many paths can you really do at one time, right?
Yes.
Right?
Why don't you see a black and white project anymore?
Because I feel
I don't have the time.
Yeah, I don't have the time to try to work that through because it's a hard thing and it takes a long time to get that. I'm going to say it again. Paul Morlock's black and whites, and to get that definition and to get that almost so contrasting black and white that it stops you when you're looking at animals and you go, oh my gosh, that looks so different kind of animal.
And what it took for him to get there, you know, it took him a lot of animals and a lot of things that didn't work out and moving the ones that didn't. And he's got the time and the space to do it. More power to him. I've got too many other little projects, right? I want the blotches, I want the stripes, I want the orange, I want the red. At some point, I got to say no, unless I want to start having 30 breeders, 40 breeders, more than that. And so it's just a decision you have to make. Oh, yeah.
200 enclosures to hold all of these different options. And then you get 1 or 2. Okay, now what do I do with the 198 other ones that didn't turn out exactly? That it's a tough call.
Well, and there's a balance too with the market and what you can produce and handle, I have been very fortunate and I am blessed. And if anybody's ever bought a gecko for me and you're watching this, thank you. You're making this possible for me. Um, I have sold out every single year. Every year I've sold out every gecko I've wanted to sell. I've never had a situation where I had to move animals, where I'm like, if I don't move these, I won't have room for the next year. It's been an absolute blessing. People keep asking, when are you going to go and vend Tinley? When are you going to go and I vended one show and my animals were too small and I won't do that again, And so, I've been, it's a blessing and a curse because I'd love to vend a show, but I don't have the animals for it.
Yes. Yes. And people will say, oh, it's good because you're selling so many. And you can also look at it and say, well, but I want the exposure to be at these shows and be able to sell. It's hard. It's a hard balance.
I hate talking to people, so I guess that's a good. No, I'm kidding.
Right.
So, but yeah, so
Right.
Nemo's really a really exciting project. And then I've got obviously Bali is bottom right. She doesn't have the laterals I took, but her face coverage. You see how the back stripe goes into the head the way it does. It just all melds together. I'm looking for that. The legs, and then you mentioned the detail that I'm looking at here and the little nuances. I want to just give a shout out to anybody I've ever had a conversation with off camera. There are certain people that I talk to on sometimes a daily basis, sometimes on a weekly basis, sometimes on a every few month basis. And we talk geckos because we're gecko nerds. And I listen and they listen and we bounce ideas. And sometimes I listen to the idea and go, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, but I'll still listen to it because maybe it has some validity later. And that's happened more times than I can count. And so maybe they see something I don't see, and I appreciate everybody's input. I didn't come up with these ideas by myself. I didn't notice every little thing to look for in these animals by myself. I did it by having conversations with people, genuinely caring and listening to them and learning from them.
I couldn't agree more. I think we kind of are frozen when we're not open-minded to even ideas that are kind of left field. And why would anybody ever do something like that? I don't get it. But
Yeah.
but make it stick. Make it stick and make sure that you remember it because that's how you go from it looks kind of red to something like this.
Yeah. Well, and Paloma, the one to the left, is one of my newest amazing pickups I got from Cosmic at Page. It was one of her breeders, and I threw her a lot. I made her a deal she could not refuse, put it that way, because I saw the potential with this animal. Now it looks faded here and really a little bit more red. It can happen with certain bloodlines where they start off orange and then they turn more red as they age. But she was very orange for a while. And the baby I produced with her first, I just hatched out the very first clutch probably 2 weeks ago with her.
Wow.
I'm not kidding. That thing, it is beyond what I ever wanted to produce. Like massive pork chop, Phil Tremper eyebrows, full 6-stripe. Like it's just neon colored, like everything. I am like instant hold back. And I could not be more grateful that I have her in my collection. So
It's fun to work with these projects and it's fun to produce animals that people are interested in, but it's also from a personal standpoint. And I'm kind of saying the same thing that you just said in a different way, maybe. Hopefully. It's fun to, as a breeder, have something in mind and then hit something that you've been planning on for a year or 2 or 5 or more years and finally hit it and go, not even from a market standpoint or business or anything. It's just like, got one.
Mhm.
This is it right here. This is what throws the gas on the fire right here by getting something like this and just enjoying that experience, like hitting a
Absolutely.
walk-off home run, 9th inning, 2 outs, 2 strikes.
Yep. And again, just because this is what I get excited about, that doesn't mean if you're not doing that you're doing it wrong. Because my very first 2 years, I remember contacting some of the breeders that I bought these geckos from, and I'm like, hey, what do you think of this one's potential, right? And they were super nice. Like, oh, it's super. Looking back, I'm like, it had no laterals, right? It had no color on its side. And I'm like, oh, do you see those dots there? I think they're going to fill it eventually. No, they're not. But, you know, but that was a home run for me then. I was just like, there's color on the side at all. I'm excited, you know? So
Yep.
it's whatever your goal is at that time. Be happy, you know,
Yes.
appreciate this. This is such a blessing that we can even, that in a world like, you know, we live in, it is so great that this can even be a hobby. Like this is so a luxury in this world. This is not a necessity. I love it.
I kind of feel like we're artists in a way without actually having to draw, hands and faces, which I could never do ever. But we get to blend these colors and these characteristics and come up with something like this. This one blows my socks off. It really does. I've got to
That's
ask.
my only Deadpool baby.
Wow.
That's a Deadpool lineage. So it's a grandkid, but yeah, she's something. And she was not a looker when she was younger. I picked her up at a steal. I saw her before I reached out to somebody. That's the other thing. Do you know you like a certain breeder? Don't wait till they post stuff. Don't. Reach out to them, talk to them. Even if they don't have stuff this month or next month, maybe, build a relationship with people, because then all of a sudden when they are taking photos and they're about to go post on Morph Market or a week before, hey, you interested in any of these, right? Before I post them. If people do that for me, you're going to get a better deal, right? But you could get some.
And you're going to get that animal first.
Yes, I'm not kidding. That animal, right? Some of who I envy their collections, right? Message me afterwards and they're like, we saw that potential too, right? They were like, we were about to buy that animal and you snagged it out, right? Like literally probably 30 minutes before they went and bought it, right? And so that's happened on the reverse, where I've saw an animal that I wanted to buy, but I didn't pull the trigger immediately, or I didn't have access immediately, and someone else got it. And I'm like, oh, I would have loved to grab that one, but you did it the right way.
Do you think that the person that you asked was offended that you asked them if they had, exactly what you were looking for?
No, just flat out no. I mean, we can always say we don't have anything, right? If you don't, but as someone who breeds geckos, we want to find good homes for these animals. And if someone's, again, if you've built a relationship and I know you take care of your animals and that you're passionate about this, I want to get that animal into your hands. If someone reaches out to me after seeing this and goes, I love oranges, that is amazing, I need one of your orange babies. Okay, let's talk about what's my expectations for budget, what your expectations for budget, what kind of coverage you're looking for. And let's work together, whether it's something I have now or something I maybe will have in 6 months or a year. We'll make it work. And I'm doing this for myself because I want to have the animals I want to have, but also as a byproduct, this is a business and I want to move these animals into good homes.
Same exact way. And if I could give, there's a certain level where you're walking into a reptile show going, what am I going to buy today? Well, this is not that level. This is about 3 steps higher than that level. Before Tinley, spring and fall, I cannot tell you how many messages to maybe people I haven't talked to for, a year, and saying, hey, do you have your available list? Hey, I'm looking for any weird, Josh, Alder. Hey, still looking for that weirdo Periodora that nobody has. It doesn't hurt. And 99.9% of the time, maybe Josh will come back and say, nope, still don't got it. So sorry. But that one hit, it's like, okay, you just scored before anybody even saw that animal.
Right. Yeah. And you have to, it depends on what, and I hate to put it this way, but it's almost like what level are you trying to play in, right? Are you trying to play in that major league? Are you trying to, if it's just any pet would do kind of thing, or, you just want to, when you're looking at what's available out there, and if you're looking at Morph Market and everything available looks just like what you want, then don't worry about this. This is not advice for you. But if you're trying to reach that next level or find something, you're looking at Morph Market in Palm Street and all these places, you're like, it's not exactly what I'm looking for. At least not right now what they have. That's when you should be reaching out to people. Like you said, right before shows, I've gotten literally every single major big animal purchase has been me reaching out blindly to somebody and just getting lucky. And I get told no more than anyone else. I guarantee it. Right. But the last group, which we'll probably show in a second here, is Magnus. Magnus, I went and there was a baby I was going to buy from Johnny Rax, who produced Magnus, and it sold, I'm not kidding, an hour before I went and said, I'll take it. Right. And this thing was on the market probably for 6 months on Morph Market. Right. But it just had a really high price tag. And I was finally, I made a sale and I'm like, I can buy it. It's in my budget. And he goes, no way. So I was sad. So I reached out. I'm like, you know what? The reason I wanted this one, because I really wanted Magnus. So I reached out to the person who owned Magnus and I said, hey, do you have any Magnus babies? Because I do. They're not nearly the same quality as him right now. But he was in a position where he wanted to move all of his gargoyles. And I'm like, well, how much is that going to cost me?
Wow.
You know, I'd love to own Magnus. And we worked out a deal. And I threw him a number that I was comfortable with. And I thought he was going to, of course, say no. No way. And it worked. I own him. You know, like you'd never know how this is all going to play out. Things happen for a reason.
Keep the communication open. Keep the communication wide open. You're talking about Magnus. Let's go.
Yeah.
Yes. So talking to us about Magnus in this group right here.
So, okay, real quick backstory. Magnus, so do you remember Red Rax videos on YouTube, Jake?
Yep.
Okay. He was probably one of the, other than you, one of the original people that actually had gargoyle content, any bit of content that, you know, and it was very specific. And I watched his how to breed gargoyle video 1,000 times. And
oh my gosh.
He had some, he still does have some amazing animals. And he actually got Magnus on a loan from Goliath Reptiles, and he was in his videos. So this to me was like the same level, not exactly, but on a similar level as Deadpool is like one of the most famous gargoyle geckos that just was super bright orange and just so different looking. Right. And so, yeah, I was just so excited to even see him and knowing, you know, just I lost track of what the question was originally. You ever do that?
No, you're fine.
But yeah, no. So my point is I was just excited that to me he was a famous gecko that I never imagined owning, and then I got the opportunity.
This is a crazy group right here.
Yeah.
The stripes. And maybe talk a little bit about how in the world do you match up these geckos? Are you looking for some kind of a characteristic that goes, okay, this male is going to go with this female, and this female?
Yeah. So, when it comes to this group in particular, the two kitty corner orange, bright orange females are actually imports from Europe. And that to me was very important. In the United States, again, red is king, and it's so genetically inbred into things that it's hard to get away from it. In Europe, orange is very prevalent. Yellows are not as hard to come by, but still rare. Black and whites are better in Europe as well, in my opinion. The best ones I've seen are over there. So it's just a different market with different drivers. And after doing my very first import, I was not afraid to reach out and figure that out. So I actually ended up getting Bermuda, which is the top right gecko, from an import from Europe. And what I was looking for was just that really nice thick back. A lot of European animals that I saw had sort of thinner backs or not great laterals. She had the best sort of 6-stripe appearance that I could find available. And actually I got kind of lucky. One of the best breeders in Europe was downsizing their collection. So I got her as a proven female, and I'm glad I did. She's produced the best babies I've ever made. especially with Magnus. But I think Magnus, knowing his lineage, came from Johnny got it from a local guy, so he didn't import anything, but he got it from a guy I'm pretty sure got European stock, which would be common in the hobby, right? And he picked it out the parents because of how bright orange and how different they were looking, and then kind of made it, did his take on it, and you get a gecko like this, and he's produced even better geckos, in my opinion, than Magnus. But Magnus just tends to prove out with his genetics, with his passing along really great traits to his offspring. And then I got an opportunity working with another guy, Bill #Geckos. I ended up working out a deal for his girl who he imported, who is now Mamanuka, who's the bottom left. When I saw her and I knew that Bermuda was doing so well, I'm like, I need to get similar looks and bloodlines. And so I wanted to get kind of an adjacent bloodline to Bermuda. And so that I got her in last year, tried to breed her last year. She produced 0 eggs, didn't even dig for me. And then this year she's off to the races. She's doing great. So it just took her some time, and her babies have been coming out on par with Bermudas. The wild horse here is my very first gecko, which I thought this was going to be a one and done season for Hawaii and that I'd retire her as a pet. She is not visually as stunning as the other two, unless you like yellow. As she's aged, she was very orange, but then she's faded yellow as she got older. So I wouldn't call her a yellow stripe, but when reds and they fade and everybody go, I hate when they fade. I want them to stay vibrant. I got excited because to me, she looks better. Right. She's still a really nice 6 stripe. I was very lucky to get her, especially as a first gecko. But her baby she produced this year with Magnus is my absolute favorite animal I've ever produced. It is just nasty covered, and they produce many babies and they don't all come out that way. But I don't know what it is about keeping geckos together long term. I feel like they get better over time. Like the first generation, I've never been blown away with the very first gecko ever hatched out of a pairing. But like year 2, year 3, all of a sudden the genetics just start talking to each other more. I don't know what it is, but worked out really well. So I was going to retire her and, have her as a pet, but not anymore. She's in that group and she's not moving.
Do you think that their babies are going to, I think this is a wild blank guess, but do you think that her babies specifically, are going to turn out yellow as they age, or are they going to stay red?
I think none of them are coming out red. This whole group is, if you want orange, get this group. Okay.
Okay.
The babies are coming out, and here's a little thing I look for. And again, I'm not saying this is science, but it's worked for me. That center stripe right next to the black center dorsal, right? So when they're babies, it's a little more prevalent. But that stripe there, if you're thinking a 6 stripe, is the 2 stripes that are the closest to the spine. That to me is a lot like, if you ever are in the dog world, the color of a puppy's ears is a better indicator of their overall adult coat, color. To me, the center stripe is a great indicator of what the adult color is going to be. And so all the babies are coming out a light orange, and they'll darken up slightly, but they're not turning red, which is huge. And if anything, they're getting super bright. Now with Hawaii, I think that she will probably produce the most because she's from the United States. She's from a pet store down here in Illinois. The most potential to throw reds than the other two, but also I think she has the most potential to fade. And maybe there's a gene that's fading, maybe just age or just a lack of I don't know what it is, but I think it's going to have the most potential to produce colors that look like her. I don't think every baby's going to come out that way because Magnus is not that way, but I think there's an opportunity. Now, if I ever find a really awesome, true yellow stripe male, I would want to throw her to him just to see.
Yes.
What makes it a 6 stripe?
Nanette's asking what makes it a six stripe. I'm going to see if I can go down. I
Sure.
think maybe
So why don't
you
you?
want
Is there any
this
way?
one.
Well,
This
yeah.
one.
So again, it's hard because these guys, the European look, they usually have multiple stripes. So that, to me, they're not true six stripes. But just to make this really simple, when they're babies, it's easier to tell. But there are six. So there's four stripes on the back, typically one on either side of the black line, and then another one just off of that, and they're distinctly stripes. And then there's usually a break. We're trying to get rid of that, right? And then the laterals are on both sides. So that's two on the laterals and four on the back. That would make six full stripes. Some people call them super stripes because a six stripe can have no color, technically. If you read the Gargoyle book that came out a while ago. But whether it's a six stripe or a super stripe, it's the ones with color.
Okay.
So, but that's why I'm trying to distinguish that from what I'm seeing in my collection and some other people's collections, where there are more than six stripes that tend to make a wider back and sort of push the laterals down towards the stomach in some animals. And to me, there's something phenotypically different about them, and their banding works. The pattern is different, and it's not because they're mixed with blotches. It's a totally different stripe, in my opinion.
Do you think the hobby is kind of going the way of identifying yellows as being not that available, not that I don't know how to say this.
They're the
Do you
hardest
think
ones to find.
Yeah, I think
I mean,
100% agree with you.
yellow. I've seen people who come to me and they're like, "Oh, I've got a yellow gecko." It's typically a yellow base gecko, like and that develops sort of with time and age, kind of like phantom eye with them, where their eyes turn black. It's not something that comes out of the egg typically. I've seen some geckos that come out of the egg with phantom eye, but I would say that yellow is typically the base. Now, what people are the holy grail, and what Paul I know has a few, very few people have anything that's a true yellow pattern, true yellow stripes, even more rare, true yellow blotches. And when you're talking about pattern color, it should not change very much, if at all, fired up versus fired down. That should be the constant with gargoyles. That's one of my favorite things about gargoyles versus crested geckos. Crested geckos, I love a red lily. Oh my God, just who doesn't? But a red lily that fires down is not the same thing, you know? So with a gargoyle, a red blotch fired up versus down, it's got that red, the base color changes, but the pattern stays the same. And I think that's a huge advantage for gargoyles.
How about orange? Do you see more people looking for the orange in the market?
Oh yeah.
And I know it's hard, talking market with this because it's, and I can see it from you. It's a passion of trying to build and trying to build upon what you've built in the past, and having that eye on 2 or 3 years down the road. But ultimately, it's what the market identifies. Just like we saw with the crusteds, lily white and then cappuccino, frappuccino, blah blah blah, and the market just skyrocketed. What's it going to take for the gargoyles? And I think that number one, you and David and a few other people, Paul obviously, have brought this attention, rightfully so, deserved attention to gargoyles. But what's it going to take for something like the crested gecko boom to happen with gargoyles? What do you think?
I hope it doesn't. and no disrespect, I hope it doesn't. That's the beauty of gargoyles is we're kind of that, like, there's a lot of Ninja Turtle nerds. We're the Raphael fans, okay? We're the anti-leader, like and you'll hear me say, come to the Garg side, right? And it's sort of tongue in cheek in that crested geckos have their place because they're amazing. And they are, there's so much variety, and the morphs that are coming out are great. And people are now jumping in to that morph race. I kind of like that we're not there yet. And I see morphs coming, but they're harder to breed. I'm having a great year, a banger year with producing eggs. But there's a lot of people I talk to that aren't, and there's a lot of breeders, and sometimes breeders I have. I have 2 females that have only produced 1 set of eggs all year so far. That's okay, and I like that because it keeps the value of them up. It keeps it manageable for more people, especially if you don't want to produce too many animals, right? It's sort of a easy to take care of small lizard that won't just run you out of house and home by producing like rabbits. I think there's a very niche place in the market for an animal like that. I think there is similar to why chewies are amazing and leechies are amazing, even more so, right? But these guys are just, in my opinion, that's a whole nother tangent. I think they're awesome in a whole different way.
God, I absolutely positively love that answer for many reasons. I shouldn't go into it, but I'm going to. I am going to. With lily whites, all of a sudden everything was a lily white, and we immediately shut our eyes to the pinstripes. We flip and shut our eyes to pinstripes, and just phenomenal animals, and all these other morphs, high contrasting. Harlequins. We shut our eyes to that because everybody wants a lily white and frepish and blah blah blah. And I literally think it was a pot with some colors, and then somebody just dumped white all in there to do. And I feel like right now what you're doing, and Paul, some other people, leaders in this hobby are doing is refinement, not rebuilding. And once we introduce a lily white to the gargoyle world, you are 100% right that it's going to change everything, and everybody will be.
People are even in classic geckos, they're reverting back. How many people do you have conversations with where they don't want morphs in their collection, or they're downsizing the amount of morphs in their collection because they realize the value in a high quality, normal harlequin or pinstripe or all these things that take time to refine. And I think it's a long-term game. And at the end of the day, one thing this will teach you is that you need patience. I see this question. The black line are considered a stripe. Yes, it is a stripe, but it's not it's a pattern stripe, or it's a pattern. It's part of the pattern. It's not part of the, or how do I put this? This is why we need to define this, and someone needs to write a book. It's part of the overall pattern of the animal, but it's not the pattern color of the animal, if that makes sense. Now, people have focused on that black stripe and the black pattern pigment, and go listen to Paul's podcast on Supreme Gecko because he talks about it there.
Thanks, and yours as well. When Paul, when you had Paul on, perfect. Nanette's been starring these. I'm going to throw them out there, but I have a couple more before you leave here. I don't want to hold you all night though.
No, I can talk for hours. It's your podcast. You tell me when to stop talking.
We will. And Frank's going to say, let's go 24. Do you have a dream morph or trait or whatever that you'd like to try for in gargoyles? So Bobby wakes up, and all of a sudden one day he looks in the incubator, or not the incubator, but in the egg box, and he sees this gargoyle that makes him faint in excitement. Describe that gargoyle?
There's two sort of steps in this vision. Right now, my vision right now is to get as much, and this is a vision a lot of people have in the gargoyle world. I want to create what I call a redhead project, where the entire head, not just the eyebrows, but a lot of my animals, I'll pick up animals, and you'll see it if you look at my collection closely, where they have color not only near their eyes, but really creeping in on the back of their head, the freckling, the lipstick. There's all different names for it, and none of it's official. But the more speckling and color, and then also, even if I can create a fully, kind of a red or an orange head animal, there's something to be said for contrast. So I love freckling. I don't care if you're, I'm Irish, right? So I love freckling on people, and I love freckling on animals. I have a blue Merle Australian Shepherd. So anything with that kind of speckling on the face is amazing. Obviously, more coverage. Everybody keeps saying, well, what happens when we have a fully covered animal? I'll tell you when I get there. I don't care. I want to get there first. It's the journey that's fun. So I'll plan for my goal, and once I get there, I'll make a new goal. So that's my take.
Yes, love it. Means to an end. Once
Yes.
we get a full coverage, then we work on putting a Chicago, emblem on the back,
Or Green Bay.
or no, Chicago.
I know. I'm a Packer
all these
fan
things are
in
in
Chicago.
line, from what we've seen. We had, how do I get to the other star? Let me go up real quick.
To the top.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay. All right. I'm going to pull this one up. Suggestion for, this is a really good one. Suggestions for overweight gargoyle geckos that are less than 2 years old. I have been breeding for going on 2 years now, and this is the first time I had a female get to 68 grams at 16 months.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
A few things. One, look at the brand of food you're feeding. If this is happening with a lot of your animals, you probably have a high sugar content, not high enough protein. Gargoyle geckos are, in my opinion, more carnivorous than crested geckos. They're a Rhacodactylus species, just like with the Leachianus. Look at their teeth. If you have never gotten bitten by one, you'll know as soon as you do. Like they have sharp little teeth for holding on to prey. If you ever put a mourning gecko anywhere near them or a pinky mouse near them, they will destroy it. Insects to a degree, but less so. I think insects are very important. They're a healthier option in the most part because we overfeed our geckos to begin with. So I would say higher protein, feed less. I know that we're mammals, but you don't have to feed every day or every other day. You can feed every 3 days. You can feed every 4 days. Those are things where they're not going to die, especially if they have excess weight on their body.
Yeah.
You control their intake.
Yes. Speaking of, teeth, the gargoyle that I was talking about, I brought it to a show and I was showing off an ego thing. Oh, look at it. And I was holding it too long and didn't realize that she, being with a male, was gravid. And after about a half hour, I'm talking to somebody and I went, oh, like this. And I looked down and she had right here on the soft part of your finger, she was doing her shaking of the head. And I knew this is going to be bad. And I talked to the person and I put her back. Look, you know what? I put my hand in my pocket and I said, let's put her away. She just wants to be by herself. And talk. And they left. And I looked and my hand's full of blood. And I had to go to the bathroom.
Nanette, you love that stain, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because it was like this.
Nothing to see here. So teeth and all. I love your comment.
Yeah.
And, you don't have to wait until 16 months. You could probably identify that at 4, 5, 6 months. And like you said, just start slowing down and more protein, more crickets, less. How many different diets are on the market, just this last week introduced. And we don't know what these things have in it for sure.
Right. Right. And everybody's got an opinion. I've had this conversation with you everybody has a favorite food, and question is, are they the ones selling the food too? So,
They responded.
I got the wrong one. Sorry.
I'm changing to every third day. She's the only one that is actually heavy. She's a big girl lengthwise, though.
Cool.
The other thing too is one thing I found is that if you have an animal that is just getting a little chunky, I've only had it happen to me, I think, once or twice, because usually as they're growing and then by the time they're 2 years, I'm going to breed them. That makes them drop weight too, by the way. Just if your animal's old enough and ready, breed them, they'll be fine. But when it comes to insects, I know some people hate crickets, right? If you have a small enough collection, you can hand feed dubia or tongue feed dubia. That's something you can get them into. The other thing too is there's nothing wrong with mealworms. There are so many people who demonize mealworms. As long as you're not only feeding mealworms, there's nothing wrong with that. Gut load them, dust them, just like any other animal. They're insectivores. They're going to eat all different things. So they're not picky in the wild. I guarantee it.
No, they are not. They're opportunistic eaters for sure. Do you do bioactive at all?
Great question.
Yeah.
Not a single one. And I have a reason for that. I think that bioactive would be fantastic if I had a pet gecko that I just wanted to set up and it was low maintenance. I've had issues where I used to put in isopods and springtails. I think springtails are pretty fantastic all around. So I have no problem with that. I probably still have a bunch in mine, but I've had isopods eat, eggs on me. Plus
Yep.
trying to find and dig, and especially if you have a true bioactive with plants, they're going to go under the roots, and then I got to root up everything. It's going to be a mess. So no, I do not, because I am purposely breeding my animals. I actually I've done iterations over the years where I've gone farther and farther and farther away from bioactive, because it's easier for me to keep the animals healthy and clean. What I find is that a lot of people who use substrate. I use substrate in my adult enclosures, but I don't use it in my babies or my grow outs anymore. I use paper towel. And I know people are cringy, and I get it, but because of my humidity situation, it's perfect with my tent. And I can swap those out very frequently. It's sanitary. I can monitor them better. And I've moved from having I feel like people can let whatever the substrate is get really, really gross, and can really like, oh, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. And then you go in there and you realize this thing's just covered in poop. And then when you have wet feces and urine and they're walking in it and they're eating, that's where you can start to have some health issues. So
A lot of great points there. And God bless the people that aren't cleaning their tanks and buy 10 armadillidium gastroids and say, okay, by tomorrow, this tank should be spotless. Bioactive doesn't mean, we call them cleanup crews and everything, but it takes time, and it takes time for that.
it's an ecosystem.
And
It's an awesome one.
ecosystem to develop, and springtails are, wonderful. But I 100% agree with you, especially with the isopods eating eggs, 1,000%. And I lived the isopod. I'm still living the isopod world, but for years and years. And when I first started, 8 years ago, 9 years ago with isopods, that was the question. Well, isopods are okay, and they'll eat your geckos, and it's not that. They'll eat eggs.
No.
That's what they will do. They will eat eggs, or calcium based. So, good point. Sorry,
Thank you.
I'll jump off my box now. Let's do this one. Are all your geckos named?
Yep. And here's
Cool.
a problem that I have, is that sometimes I name a gecko and then I sell the gecko, and I really like the name. And I'm like, do I rename my new gecko one of the old geckos' name, or is that confusing? So I have a rule that if I breed the gecko and I sell the offspring, I won't use that name again. But if I sell a gecko and I hadn't produced offspring, just for record keeping. But yeah, they're all named. They're all named after island or island themed things.
The babies you're naming?
Oh, not every baby. No.
Okay.
I have. They have
You're gonna keep.
they all have a stormtrooper name, like BB-8 kind of thing, But it's all just a code, so I know which parents and what day they're born and year they're born and that kind of stuff. But anything I hold back, it has a name.
It has a name. Cool. Okay. Do you keep the geckos 1-3 all together during your breeding season?
I keep them all year. 1.3.
You're
I don't separate. I cohab.
This
Because
right now on Facebook. Bobby
and here's why.
cohabs.
Here's why. What's the most dangerous part of cohabbing gargoyle geckos? When's the danger zone? When is the highest likelihood they're going to fight?
I know where you're going. The minute they're introduced.
Yeah, it's introduction. So if I take that male out of there, right, and say I keep the females together even, right, and then I throw the male back in at the beginning of the season. Well, that's why you do it, obviously, when they're colder or during the winter. I get that point. But it's also the highest risk of the male getting killed. I invest way too much in my animals to even risk that. If they're getting along and they're peaceful, let them be. I've had zero issues, and that's what the people that I respect, that's what they do. And I'm not the smartest person in the room here, so I'm happy to learn from them. And it's worked so far.
I'll throw this out. Now, 100% agree again with you. And again, if you go to Facebook or if you go to Instagram or whatever your social media, and you say, look, I've got the male and female together. It's literally like, let me light that fire, because you are burnt to cinders. I say I cohabitate, and I cohabitate crustids and gargoyles and picta and viper, but I'll follow it up with, please, if you're just beginning, do not cohabitate, because
Correct.
I've done this, and other people that have done this have done it for years and years, and they know what to look for when that female or the male shows signs of being bullied, not
Hmm.
abuse, signs of being bullied, which means that you're not going to see, broken skin or maybe even weight loss. You're just going to see behavior changes. And
Yep.
if you've kept animals for long enough, you'll recognize that, and you're probably looking at them every day, every other day at least,
Well,
and
that's
you're going to see that right away.
huge. Is having a manageable number of geckos to start so that you can observe them. Right. You're not jumping into how much I have right now, year one. Um, I know where my girls' favorite spots are. My breeders that I cohab. Right. I
Yep.
know who's going to
Yes.
be near the top, who's going to be near the bottom, who's going to be in this cork round. They're creatures of habit. And so I know when something's off, I weigh them pretty frequently. I think that that's a good thing to do. I do it more obviously with grow outs, but even my adults, I weigh them just to make sure. Visually, I can tell and do an inspection. Um, but also, the other big reason not to cohab right away is when you're starting out, and you can watch my old interviews, go back. And I remember asking a few of them, like, well, what do you do? And even they said, the ones that said that they cohab, they said, but you starting off, nobody knows who Gecko Cove is. Nobody knows who your animals are. They're going to want lineage. And you need to be able to find a way that works for you to track that so that you can give them proper lineage without, bamboozling somebody and lying, because you shouldn't do that. Um, and what I found is, again, going back to Jake, his videos, he would track their cycles. Now, he didn't cohab, but I used that where I track, and I noticed that all of my girls, almost all of them, without fail, they will go and dig about an hour after the lights go off. So I have all my stuff on automation. Every night, whether I'm feeding or not, I go down there with a flashlight and I look to see who's in the lay box. And that way I know the next morning if I find eggs, who it came from. And I also track their cycle. So I
Oh,
go from the last lay, how many, because they're pretty consistent. Like, let's say today I had Bimini lay eggs, right? I know Bimini, the last 3 clutches, it's been about 45 to 46 days in between. So if and they're not all on the exact same cycle, they haven't synced up that well. So I know if it's been 45 days and I saw her in the lay box yesterday, I can almost bet the house that it's a Bimini egg.
I had that question earlier in the show.
Hmm.
We're holding you wait longer than I wanted to. Sorry about this,
You're
but
fine.
I wanted to ask about cohabbing and keeping multiples together, and you just explained this. And it makes your point about don't keep more than you can really watch. So important, because, like you just said, you're looking at them at night, and you know which female is going to lay next, and or which one will have eggs tomorrow morning.
Hmm.
What a great point! What a great point!
Somebody wants
Thanks.
to know how big the enclosures are with
Yep.
all the animals.
Yeah. Great point. So right now I have a 1.3 and an 18-18-24. When I was first sort of thinking about cohabbing, that's what I had. Um, I was thinking I might just go and upgrade to a 2x2x2. And I was told by, again, smarter people than myself, more is not always better, right? Because then they can form a little bit more territorial behavior. It's not always just about the box size, it's about the surface area. And I'm a huge, not only surface area when you're cohabbing, meaning that they have more room to move around and get away from each other. They are not two-dimensional creatures. They're three-dimensional, climbing on things. So that's really important. The other thing is, you need, with gargoyles when you're breeding them, to create spaces that are tiny enough for one gecko to get in there and get away. Now, when you go and you see some enclosures where it's just a few cork flats leaned against each other, that's not a gargoyle enclosure, guys, because that male can chase the female around it over and over again. She's going to get stressed. She's going to drop weight. She's not going to produce. The male is not going to eat. they need to have visual barriers. They need to get away from each other. They need spaces that they can be by themselves, even in this situation. And I think that's key.
And I hate to bring them up again, but the interview that I did with Paul, the one takeaway, I had several takeaways, but the one action item that thank you very much, Paul. Thanks for the interview. Bye-bye. I immediately stopped the interview and ran downstairs and added more egg crates to my enclosures because
Yes,
I was the one with 3 pieces leaning up against each other. So I added a bunch more because of that, because it's such a great point that, the smaller spaces in the male just can't, okay, don't use your hands while talking about geckos breeding. The male can't breed the female if he can't get in there and won't chase her around then. What a great point.
Absolutely.
Okay, let me see if I can get this other starred. JP was asking, isn't Pennywise a Deadpool baby?
Nope.
No.
No.
Oh my
No.
God.
Pennywise is a Renee King production with no Deadpool lineage. He, David took Pennywise, bred it to a Deadpool offspring female, and produced Tampax.
Gotcha. So. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
What about passing the names? We were talking about names before. What about passing the names like father to son?
Well, my wife wouldn't let me name my kids after me, so I don't know. Maybe I'll have to do it with the geckos. Give them permission. I think it's cool. I think it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, maybe I'll have a Magnus Jr. This is something that I'm going to have to start thinking about, especially this year, is if I've got a male that's still got many years to go, when do I retire him to bring on his son? Or rotate in daughters, that kind of stuff. I'm not there yet. I probably will, but I don't know. It'll be interesting. It'll be a hard decision because again, then I don't want to let them go, and I don't want to keep growing, and I don't want to have 1,000 pets on the side. So these are problems for future Bobby to look back at and laugh at.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about future Bobby in the next question, but that's a problem that you just described for every breeder that's breeding more than 1 or 2 animals, is that decision of when is retirement, when do I move on, when is too much, when is enough animals to breed. Everybody goes through that. I'm going to ask this one real quick, and then I'm going to ask mine that relates exactly to that. In fact, I'm not even going to ask JP's question. I'm going to rephrase it to my question.
Excellent.
Tell me your biggest challenge. I'll call it challenge from last year you had to overcome. And then tell me your biggest success from last year. And then incorporate that into an answer that also, I sound like I'm talking to AI. And then incorporate that into an answer that says 2026 was a great year because of this. So challenge. What was your biggest success from last year, and what's going to be your biggest success this year?
Okay, so let me start with the success. I'm going to start with the positive. I'm going to start with the success.
Yeah.
My biggest success last year was starting to produce the animals I always dreamed about. I just got a taste after seeing what I produced this year, but there was some animals that just it just is so self-reinforcing, right? This hobby, which is fantastic. So I think that was, the just having a quality where I felt like all my theories were starting to really pan out. All my nitpicking really was starting to pan out. That was a great success. I would say my biggest challenge had nothing to do with the actual animals. The challenge that I'll word this carefully, with any bit of success with animals, especially when I'm trying to go to this high of a quality tier. I don't know how I could attribute it, but I just found people treated me differently or started to act differently towards me or didn't want to interact with me in certain ways. And To me it's disheartening, and it was hard to kind of wrap my head around. I want to be friends with everybody. I know that
Mhm.
that's a pie in the sky kind of thing. But to me, this is the fun. This is not my job. This is not my, this is where I go to escape. And so dealing with the people side of things, when people sometimes don't mesh with you, or are jealous, or are angry about this or that, or disagree with you, and that could be, I kind of I got past that the first 2 years without having any real issues. It was all kumbaya, and the kumbaya ended with certain situations. So that was a big challenge that I had to overcome.
Yeah, Bobby, that's a tough one.
Yeah,
We had
it
our
hits
worst
everybody.
situation last year, and my stance, right or wrong, was, and it was all public in social media. And my stance was, I'm not going to add any fuel to your fire or any recognition whatsoever. I'm going to move on. And then, I got railed on for ignoring the problems that you're causing. We're all going to face that. You get a
Yep.
bigger and better name, and good for you. And
Thanks.
you're going to face some of those challenges. And my advice to anybody, watching the show with something like that is build a support team. So if you ever run into a problem like that,
Mhm.
and you come to me and say, Wally, tell me if I'm right or wrong. And if I'm right, can you help me on social media and say something? And,
Mhm.
I've got your back on something like that. That's what you can do, and ignore the naysayers and just move on. It's not worth your time. It's not worth your headaches. It's not worth your stress. So, anyways,
Oh, I completely agree, and I think that's I whether it's something public where yeah, the stuff gets brought out. Luckily, I haven't been in those situations yet. But even just disagreements among people that acquaintances, things like that. It's going to happen, guys. You're not
yep.
always going to agree. You're not always going to get along with everybody, even if you're best friends today, maybe not tomorrow, kind of thing. It's human nature. But I think respecting, leaving it, not adding fuel to the fire. That's a great piece of advice. Thank God I'm not doing this 10 years ago. I was way more hot-headed. I'm probably way more hot-headed than my wife wants me to be at this point, so, but it's a life lesson. It's maturity. And we're dealing with people of all different walks of life, all different ages, all different perspectives. And this is going to come up, but it's how you as an individual want to see. And this is where I'll throw a big shout out to Flawless Crested Geckos. I
Yeah, there
think
you go.
they are such an amazing company, and the way they present themselves is something I try to emulate. They do not get involved in the drama. They are people who just keep beaming positivity and future in the hobby, and hopefully that's the image I can give to
Outstanding. Absolutely. So
this
I'm
year.
going to, this
You want the
year,
last
yeah,
part?
this minute
Real
right
quick, real
now.
quick.
This hour.
Biggest thing this year?
Yeah.
I don't know yet.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's sort of, I've got the same goal. I really, I want to see where my limit is with the production this year, so that I can make the right choices of who I pair up next year, and just enjoy the process this year and see what crazy stuff keeps coming out of the eggs. So, yeah.
Outstanding. We're going to finish off, unless I have show this real quick. Make sure you go to Bobby's YouTube channel. Watch
Oh,
his
thank you.
YouTube, because they're like the best around. And you were talking about watching somebody's 1,000 times. I've watched some of yours 2, 3, 4 times just to get those details, and I'll come back 2 months later and say, "Did I not watch this?" Well, I'm just going to watch it again.
Well, here's one more goal for this year.
Yeah.
Make them better. I want to produce more. It's something I keep saying I want to do, but it's hard to juggle now that I'm a full-time dad. It's actually harder now that I'm not working, because I'm working way more, So, but also I go back to those videos. Man, I wish I could just have a better mic or have a better setup. You always want to improve, but like Phil Trimper's episode, I was sick as a dog. I was so excited to get him on, and my audio sucks. It's horrible. I sound like Darth Vader, right? So it's just like,
I know that episode. I didn't
yeah,
take that away from that episode at all.
I
I really
appreciate
didn't.
that.
Oh, no.
I'm my biggest critic.
We all are. We absolutely are. And I can, do as I say, don't do as I do, but just press record, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, absolutely.
and get it out there. So
Wow.
yeah, how about that? Yeah,
Wow.
I can hear her saying that on a daily basis. Did you do your video today? No, I did. Wally, just press record. Okay, one more question here, real quick.
Do it.
Taylor is asking, so I have experience with tons of reptiles, but have never bred gargoyle geckos, but I would like to breed my group. Would a 4-foot long by 2-foot tank be better than an 18-18-24? It's a 1-3 group.
I don't think they heard the whole explanation.
Maybe
before.
not, but it's probably a good.
I can repeat this real quick.
Yeah.
So again, I wouldn't choose to do it. Now, if that's all you have, I would find a way to put a divider to make 2-2x2s. And I actually, if you go back to my videos, I did it with an 18 something, 24 maybe. What's a 40-gallon breeder, but PVC. I did that to make 2 enclosures there. Just be really careful that you actually fully divide the center. The reason is that I think that's just too much space that you can fill. It would just be, in my opinion, it would create territories for them so that they would have more fighting over that space. If they're always kind of like fish, if you're in the fish hobby, when you've got a bunch of African cichlids and you have a bunch of males together, the more space you give them, the more dead fish you have, right? And so even though something that seems like it might be a little bit less, you want to make sure that you're giving them something optimal for their personality, but also make sure there's enough. We said this earlier, but surface area, lots of different crevices for only one gecko to get in. Huge, important.
Absolutely, and no problem, Taylor, asking a question. Great question to cover.
Great question.
It's so important. I'll also equate it to fish keeping. And when I kept Tropheus, I would have 1 male to like 10 females. So what you want to do is the 18-18-24 and 1 male and 10 females. Do that. Don't do that.
I know someone who's tried it.
How would you control that? I have no idea. But
at that point, there is no lineage.
No, there is not. It's gone.
I couldn't track that many girls.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, JP is having a
what?
Question here that he said was very important.
I'm sorry.
And I'm trying to find the right
I'm
one.
sorry.
Oh,
JP knows he could just call me.
Well, and this isn't that important. Have you ever said on accident that your kids hatched instead of saying that they were born? His wife was not very happy when he said that. I'm guessing
because she put a lot of work into it. It wasn't the egg that did the work,
Exactly.
So yeah.
I wasn't happy with you either. I was just
kidding.
I called you out anyway.
That's okay. Just have a few more shots of the Pangea you're having, and
again, JP,
I think he let it sit in the enclosure a few too long, fermented. So
outstanding. So where can people find you? We talked about YouTube, but
Frank has been putting like all these blurbs in here too.
He has, really?
Yes.
Frank.
Well, at the very beginning of the show, he had every link possible. Morph Market, Gecko Cove, at www.Gecko Cove. He's got Facebook out here.
I got everything but Twitter.
Yeah.
Instagram.
Well, I guess it's X now, and Instagram. Or no, I've got Instagram. That's the big one. I'm not on TikTok. That's the one. I'm too old. Baby face, but still too old.
I would love to see you dancing on TikTok. Can we get that done?
I may look tan now, but I'm way too pasty to dance on TikTok.
I would with that.
Yeah. So where you can find me, obviously we've talked about, Instagram's the number one. I think that's for most breeders out there. Instagram is just huge. I am active on Facebook. I get the pings. If you want to message me on Facebook, I have my, if you find my face, my personal, Bobby Covek account, or my Gecko Cove account. Most people don't even follow me on Facebook, Gecko Cove. YouTube, my website has my breeders on it. If you want to go find lineage, that kind of stuff. Morph Market is typically where I have my posted animals. I do have a Palm Street I do every once in a blue moon, but I don't find that to be the best place for me. just with the style of animals I keep.
Yep.
And I usually don't have enough unless I'm helping out a friend. But honestly, Instagram, if you guys asked a question tonight, thank you so much. It really does mean a lot that you're interested enough. If you didn't get your question answered or you want to ask me a question you're thinking about, hit me up on Instagram, send me a message. I'm happy to talk to you guys for hours about geckos, especially gargoyle geckos. It's a passion, and you're not bothering me. I'm not anything special. I'm not famous. I'm just a guy that put pretty geckos together and likes to talk online.
Well, again, to reiterate what I said in the beginning, I think you're a leader in this hobby, not just for gargoyles, but the hobby itself, how you act, how you display yourself to the hobby, how you interact with people. I just want to, if nobody else says it, I want to say thank you very much for being you yourself. And by magic, I am going to right now watch as I do this. I'm putting all of those links in this video's. Okay, it's done. They're all in the video description. So guys, go out there and follow him on YouTube, follow on Instagram, say hi on Facebook, wherever. Go to X if you want to go to X. I don't know. But make sure that you're following Bobby.
Thank you. And Wally, thank you for all the kind words today. You and Annette are I could say the exact same thing about you guys. You're such beacons in this hobby, and I've learned so much from both of you, and I really enjoy. There's so many nights I sit and whether I get it live or later on watching your episodes while I'm feeding geckos. So thank you for being, you guys, and I always look forward to seeing you guys at shows.
Appreciate that. You're just waiting for the time Nanette just goes crazy on me and yells and screams and walks out. That's what everybody tuned. It's like watching NASCAR. They're waiting for or a hockey match. They're waiting for the fight. They're waiting for the crash. They're waiting for Nanette to just, frying pan me upside the back of the head. That's what everybody's waiting for.
As a married man myself, it's very relatable. So it's good content.
Thank you very much, Bobby. I appreciate it.
Thank
Good
you.
times. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.